Welcome to Utilizing AI, a podcast about enterprise adoption of machine learning and artificial intelligence technologies. I'm your host, Stephen Foskett from Gestalt IT. You can find me writing at gestaltit.com, and you can find me on Twitter at sfoskett.
And I'm Ray Lucchesi. I'm a Graybeards on Storage podcaster. I'm also a Ray on Storage blogger, and I'm at silvertonconsulting.com. And my Twitter ID is at Ray Lucchesi.
Thanks, Ray. It's really great to have you here because I think that in a way you embody the topic of utilizing AI more than many of our guests because you've been involved in enterprise IT for a long time and you've seen a lot of different technologies come and go. And but yet, one of the things that I always enjoy about your blog and about your podcast and just talking to you generally is that you don't seem stuck in the past in terms of oh, this is how it should be or this is how it was. It always seems like you have an open mind about new technologies. And, you've been writing a lot about AI.
I try to I've been following AI for now, 30, 40 plus years. I've been really interested in off and on during the AI winters and AI summers and all that stuff. It's really emerged over the last decade or so as a solution in pattern matching and that sort of thing that it never had before. So it's kind of exciting from my perspective to see what it can and can't do. And I try to keep adept or try to keep up with the technology as it emerges.
Exactly. And, also I think that by being involved in enterprise tech for a long time, you've seen how it really is. And one of my concerns, honestly, about artificial intelligence, machine learning, is that a lot of the pitches don't seem all that practical. A lot of the, the things that people are saying would require, massive business model changes in terms, basically change, transform your whole way of doing business and use AI to predict, future growth and all this. I mean, it's really business end kind of things. But when we look at the IT space, my question is, do you see this technology coming to IT operations as well, or is it really a line of business technology?
I see it both. I mean, to a large extent, from a line of business perspective, depending on the application, depending on the environment that they have, if there's something that might benefit from a more accurate pattern recognition and that sort of stuff, AI could be a significant benefit. But, Google and other organizations have shown that they can utilize AI to reduce power consumption, to reduce air cooling, to reduce those sorts of things. So there's an operational aspect as well to AI. It's harder, I would say, from an operational perspective, IT operations, how would they utilize AI to be more effective? But again, it's a question of matching. It's a pattern matching machine today. If you can define something that requires better pattern matching in AI in IT operations, then this would be a natural for it.
Yeah. And that to me is the natural first application of this. And I think that's really where we're seeing it. Things like processing log files. I think it's just a total slam dunk, right?
Yeah, because you've got, you're looking for patterns out of logs to see what's going bad or what's in the process of going bad. If you're doing some preventive maintenance kinds of things, if you want to try to, let's say you've got 1,000 servers out there with, 10,000 disks or something like that, you can utilize AI to try to ascertain which one of those disks is going bad and get rid of it or swap it out before it happens, before it fails and stuff like that. I think those are natural types of situations that you could use this for. But again, it's what's a reasonable pattern recognition application of the technology. If you can come up with something like that and you've got the data, I think AI is a natural solution. AI deep learning today, right?
Yeah, and I guess it depends on what you mean by AI, right?
Right.
But let's say deep learning and machine learning applications. Certainly in storage, a lot of companies are using or claiming to use AI. So let's talk about that. Storage management. You got things like the InfoSight.
HPE's InfoSight, and there's a number of other generations of that across a number of other vendors. I think so. If you look at AI, if you look at InfoSight to a large extent, it cut its teeth on preventive maintenance of the solutions that it has. So it's trying to identify problems before they occur and have, some activity or some action that a customer can take or service can take to make sure it doesn't affect their operations. Again, it's pure pattern recognition. So they're getting, massive amounts of data from every one of these systems out in the field. They've got this database out there. They can see when a problem actually does occur, and then they can try to feed that sort of pattern information into a deep learning model and go forward with it. And the challenge with AI is you have to continue to train it. It's not something you can train once and leave. You have to continue to train. So you're taking all this data in. Every time it sees something new, you're going to have to feed that back into it.
And I think that that's one of those things that presents a lot of challenges on, sort of an operational basis, but also on a technical basis, because if you're going to continue to train it, then that means that you need hardware that is capable of doing the training. And I know that you've looked into that, like what it takes.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, in this recent post I did on machine learning performance, and, one of the top players there was NVIDIA. They had their latest DGX A100 solution there. They had over 1,400 GPUs running this mini Go algorithm to learn Go, to how to play Go at 50% effectivity. Not everybody's going to have that. It can take a lot of time and effort to do this well, and the hardware requirements can be significant. It depends on the data too. I mean, God, I did a mini AI algorithm. I did my blog post titles. I'm trying to figure out which one was more popular and why they're more popular, and have some way of predicting popularity of blog posts based on titles. And I can do it in a single GPU without too much of a problem. I've got a couple more I can fire up to do other stuff. But, I've got less than 1,000 blog posts, so there's less than 1,000 titles, maybe 10, 12 words each. It's not a lot of data. Customer info site, every solution out there, every nimble storage system out there is running literally thousands of data items every minute, if not every second, and they're sending that back to HPE, and they're feeding all, it's a massive repository of data. It's a perfect solution for AI, but providing the hardware to run all that stuff through and try to is significant.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think that in the future, do you think that enterprise IT infrastructure, do you think the data center is going to have like an AI corner that's sitting there running these applications?
I think that absolutely. Today, you're starting to see the introduction of Dell servers that are focused on GPUs, VxRail that has a GPU configuration. There are a number of solutions out there that are focused on, providing computational technologies there that can be deployed for either video displays or for AI machine learning. And once you've got that, so let's say, I don't know, you have 1,000-person organization running VDI, you've probably got some servers out there with GPUs in there. During the day, devoted to this sort of, to VDI sorts of solutions. At night, if that even exists for you, because you might be worldwide, fire up some AI stuff.
Well, that's an interesting thought. I was actually thinking of that when you were talking about the GPUs, because a lot of companies do currently have, a lot of GPUs for VDI applications, and since it's
absolutely
similar technology, really. But
it is exactly the same technology. Like I said, we were talking before, and I took my CryptoMine, which was 3 GPUs, and I converted it to an AI workstation because the crypto, just wasn't there anymore.
Yeah. So, do you think though that this is going to be something? You talked about the 24/7. Is this going to outgrow the VDI footprint? Is this going to be something where you're going to have a whole other world of enterprise tech? Just a whole other vertical. That's the AI engine.
There are a number of hardware-only solutions, Cerebus and GraphCore and those kinds of guys. They're creating special processing units strictly for neural network processing or deep learning kinds of things. Those things exist. If you look at what NVIDIA did with their A100, it's focused to a large extent on machine learning workloads. I'm sure it can do GPU kinds of stuff, but it's been it's been touted as an AI workstation environment. Google has their TPU. There's special hardware that's available. It's very costly. In my mind, the Cerebus thing is the size of a 16-inch wafer or something like that, and it's got 40,000 cores on the thing. Okay, that can do that, but it's a specialized solution.
And
a lot depends. Yeah, absolutely. A lot depends on the amount of data you're working with and what you're trying to do. If it's if it's a one-off or a two-off thing, use the GPUs you've got in house and have at it. If it's going to be something you're going to be doing thousands of data items from every solution you have in the field every second, then you need something a little bit more beefy to work with this stuff.
Well, that's, it's interesting that you say that, because you and I were both at the Intel Xeon Scalable launch. And I don't know if you remember, I mean, one of the things that they talked about was basically
Deep
using
learning stuff.
Xeon
Yeah,
as a
yeah.
deep learning platform. They have, Intel is honestly, well, my feeling is that they went in the wrong direction initially by trying to make CPUs with just massive size, vector calculators, AVX 512. And,
Right.
and then they totally like went the other way, and they realized, oh wait, what do you mean? You only want 8-bit? We can do 8-bit. And
Yeah,
suddenly,
yeah.
they're talking about, the new, which is, low resolution, vector
They have
processing.
their own deep learning library that they've supplied, which is lower resolution than 32 and 64-bit floating point. And can it do the job? I think it can. It doesn't seem like 64-bit resolution is required for most AI opportunities, and 16 is probably adequate, and eight might work.
Yeah.
And in fact, this last blog post I wrote on machine learning performance, this was solutions that were learning mini Go, how to play Go and stuff like that. And Intel Xeon system, Copper Lake 6 or something like that, came in like number 6 or 7 on the list. 14,000, not 14,000, 1,400 A100 GPUs was first. These guys, so that was like, it took 20 seconds to do this. And there was 8 Copper Lake servers with maybe 4 CPUs each or cores each or something like that. And it took like 500 seconds. So you can do it. It's not impossible.
But that was their pitch was, and I remember at the time we were all kind of like scratching our heads like, are you kidding me? You can't
Yeah,
compete
yeah.
with GPUs. But their pitch was, Xeon may not be able to compete with GPUs, but Xeon can compete with no GPUs. In other words,
Yeah,
if
yeah,
you're not going to buy GPUs,
yeah, yeah,
then the Xeon can take on a lot of that workload. You can kind of repurpose your virtual infrastructure or your cloud, your onboard, on-premises cloud, to do the deep learning calculations, and then you don't have to buy those GPUs.
yeah,
And
yeah,
to
yeah.
me, that was like, oh, I get what you guys are saying. You're not
It
trying to
took,
say that Xeon is going to beat the A100. You're trying to
right.
say that not having the A100 is a viable alternative.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you have to use their library. You have to do some conversion activity of your model, but they claim it's all, TensorFlow compatible. And if that's the case, then you can do it.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, I think that, like you said, I mean, as well, maybe it's not as fast, but maybe that's a way that companies might not need to have. Because I'm just imagining this. I mean, like my background in the data center comes from when there used to be lots of verticals in the data center. Like there was the telecom rack, there was the
Yeah, yeah.
finance rack, there was the HR rack, there was the manufacturing rack, and all these kind of different things. Everybody had their own vertically integrated stack of equipment. And
Right.
then we kind of virtualized and commoditized the data center with VMware, and and everybody could share this. Well, more applications could share the same equipment. But I'm just thinking like, okay, well, if it needs GPUs, then that's a specialized piece of hardware. That means we're going to not be able to commoditize that.
Yeah. I think, well, I mean, obviously there are more than just NVIDIA in the GPU game, and that's a solution. A lot of these environments do VDI have GPUs. They're just not maybe using them all day long. Depends on the size of the organization, that sort of thing. So that's an option. And if you want, you can use Xeon CPUs to do it with the proper libraries and all that stuff. It's another step. It's not a big deal from my perspective to make that conversion. I haven't tried that logic, but it's not saying I couldn't do it.
Well, then the other thing though is that Intel, yeah, they maybe got caught a little bit on the back foot when it came to the GPU dominance of deep learning, but they're no fools, and they've been
Right.
working really hard. And in fact, they just in August announced a whole range of sort of GPU platforms that they can now produce. They'll be rolling those out. Like I said, they've got new instructions in the Xeon. I do think that this is something that maybe is going to be part of the future data center.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, it's surprising to me how many things that we do on a daily basis that pattern matching can help. It's just
Yep.
and that's what this deep learning stuff does for us. It's just this fine-tuned pattern matching that you can fire up without really that much effort. I think the biggest challenge is getting the data right, quite frankly.
Well, exactly. And let's talk about that. So, I mean, you're old school storage guy like me. This is a really weird data set, right? It's huge and it needs high performance occasionally at various spots. And
Yeah,
it needs to
yeah.
be able to like dump a massive amount of data in here and then take that out and dump a different set of data in there. I mean, it's just a really weird storage application.
So during the training opportunity, you're feeding all this data into this model. The model is making computational changes to its network, and then you're doing it again, and you're probably feeding it in anywhere from 20 to 100 times the same data, randomized. And it's to some extent it's sequential, but it's not. It's small picture files or small text images, or in the case of InfoSite, it's probably large status dumps from a storage system or something like that. And yeah, it is a lot of data, but it's not like the old day where we're processing, we're updating, where this OLTP paradigm. No, that's not it. This is more like give me a bunch of small files as fast as you possibly can while I'm training. Then I don't want to talk to you again until the next time we do a training run, to a large extent, because now it's all inferencing. And yeah, maybe I'll record what happened, my inferencing activities and stuff. But
it's just such a weird application because is there any application in the data center that you can think of that has been like this? I mean, I guess, maybe a data lake.
Yeah, big data types of things, data, batch processing of old, nah, not really. To a large extent, it was input and output kinds of stuff. But this is input many times, right? Over and over again, randomized. And then you're actually, the output is this model, this set of weights associated with a neural net that you're creating.
Well, one of the things too is that there's been a big demand for sort of snapshotting the data set along with the model, because basically, you're doing this training and then you need to be able to save that data set so that you can do the same training with the same data set again.
Absolutely.
If you should change the model, or if maybe you just need to go back and look.
Right. You want to snapshot the model. You have to save the model. You have to save the data with the model so you can, if you have a compliance problem with the model, it's not properly doing something or it's biased or something like that, you want to be able to go back to the data to see why it got to that point. And if you're going to do any inferencing with the model, you have to save the model in any fashion. You have to save it in some form that you can run an inferencing engine on. TensorFlow has got this thing called TF-Lite. It's Google, obviously. And effectively what they're doing is you can take a model trained on TensorFlow and convert it into a TF-Lite model that you can run on a Raspberry Pi or an Android or, Arduino if you want, something like that. So these are for IoT applications and stuff. But sooner or later, you have to take the model, that inferencing engine, and deploy it someplace.
Yeah, and that's, I think, what we're going to start seeing is as this technology makes more waves, we're going to start seeing special purpose, special purpose processing units. I mean, Apple is building those into their A series CPU.
Right.
I definitely think that we're going to see that, but that doesn't need to be heavy, like you're pointing out. Like it can run. I mean, absolutely. I've actually run stuff like that for Home Assistant on the Raspberry Pi.
Yeah, exactly.
To do, like pattern recognition, like, is it a bicycle? Is it a man? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it works.
Right.
Even on that little low powered ARM CPU, because the model was already created, right?
Yeah, the hard lifting is all done during the model training and stuff like that. After that, it's a pretty straightforward process.
Yeah. So, we're starting to hear as well, a lot of the storage companies talking about how they're going to leverage their products in this AI space. I know that, just off the top of my head, I've heard that from Pure Storage. I've heard that from, VMware with,
vSAN and stuff.
Yeah, with vSAN. I certainly have heard that from Dell. Do you buy it? Do you buy it that we need special purpose storage systems?
I don't think you need special purpose storage systems. I mean, these are to a large extent, these are file systems. This is file system based data, and pure FlashBlade, sure. Would you use that as an input, or someplace to gather the data and supply it to an AI engine? Sure, why not? You could use Cumulo, you could use S3, you could use just about anything that can support objects or files. The big question, and a lot of the storage stuff that I've written in the past about AI is, you want to keep that expensive hardware, GPU, Cerebus, GraphCore, whatever, busy. In order to do that, you have to feed it data all the time. Those sorts of things might require, more enterprise grade types of storage services and stuff like that. But can you do it without? I think so.
Well, I feel like some of these companies kind of lucked out. For the longest time, we've had these object stores.
Oh, yeah,
They were kind of like a solution looking for a problem. And I remember when Pure introduced FlashBlade, a lot of us were scratching our heads like, okay, that's awesome, but what's it for?
Yeah,
and then suddenly AI comes along and is like, I need all your file and object. And Pure is like, ooh, right here, we got that.
Yeah, it was an interesting play for them, and it certainly made a good fit from that perspective. Yeah. And are there other solutions out there that could do this sort of thing? Absolutely. It's obviously a unique architecture, and it's got advantages from that perspective. But scale out files has existed for years.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You look at, like we said, you look at Cumulo, you look at PowerScale. These systems are really, solid as well. And, and I do think that they're going to be seeing some uptake in this new AI world.
Yeah, if not already. Absolutely.
Well, thanks a lot, Ray. It's been great to talk to you, great to catch up. I always enjoy listening to Graybeards on Storage because, like I said, you guys, you've got a lot of experience, but you're not stuck in the past. It's not like you're like, my IBM invented everything and the mainframe's all, you're like, oh, hey, show me the new stuff. I'd like to see the new stuff.
Yeah, we like to try to understand what's going on in the new space and stuff like that. And lately, we've been on sort of a new technology trend in the podcast. We'll go back to normal someday. We'll see.
We don't have to.
That's right. It's the technology is changing so rapidly. It's amazing.
Those of you listening, thank you very much for joining us as well. Please do subscribe to the Utilizing AI podcast, where we have conversations like this with folks like Ray all the time. So Ray, once again, can you remind us, where can we find content from yours on the topic of AI?
So I do a lot of AI writing in rayonstorage.com blog. And again, I'm a Graybeard on Storage podcaster, and occasionally we talk about AI storage concerns there as well. And thanks for having me, Steve.
Great. Thank you very much. Those of you listening, please do subscribe, rate, and review us on iTunes, since that, I know everybody says it really does help us, but it really, really does help us, get listeners. We would be glad to have you. And you can find more content like this as well at gestaltit.com.